When most people think about America's economic powerhouses, they think of New York, or Los Angeles, maybe Dallas, Miami, or Silicon Valley. Very few people think about Minneapolis. And that's exactly what makes this city so interesting. Because hidden behind its relatively modest reputation is one of the most successful economic stories in American history. The Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area is home to roughly 4 million people. That's large, but not enormous. There are many metropolitan areas in America with similar populations. Yet Minneapolis has managed to build an economy that is dramatically larger and more influential than most people realize. The question is, how? How did a city in one of the coldest parts of the United States become home to some of the biggest companies on the planet? The answer begins more than a century ago. And surprisingly, it starts with flour. Back in the late 1800s, Minneapolis wasn't famous for technology, or finance, or corporate headquarters. It was famous for something far less glamorous: wheat. Huge amounts of wheat were being grown across the American Midwest. The challenge was turning that wheat into flour and getting it to market. And Minneapolis had a major advantage: the Mississippi River. Particularly a section known as St. Anthony Falls. For decades, the falls provided enormous amounts of water power. That power drove giant flour mills that transformed wheat into one of the most important products in the world. By the 1880s and 1890s, Minneapolis had become the flour milling capital of the planet. Think about that for a moment. The world's flour capital. Not Chicago, not New York, not London, Minneapolis. Some estimates suggest that at its peak, Minneapolis mills produced enough flour to supply millions of people around the globe. And where there is industry, money follows. A lot of money. Companies like Pillsbury and General Mills grew out of this economic boom. Fortunes were created, banks expanded, railroads connected the city to the rest of the country, and a foundation was built that would shape Minneapolis for generations. Many cities experience economic booms, but here's what made Minneapolis different. It didn't depend on a single industry forever. As the economy evolved, Minneapolis evolved with it. The wealth generated from agriculture and manufacturing was reinvested into entirely new sectors: healthcare, retail, technology, finance, consumer products. Instead of being trapped in the past, the city kept reinventing itself. And over time, something unusual happened. Large corporations started clustering here. Today, the Twin Cities region is home to an extraordinary number of major corporate headquarters: Target, Best Buy, 3M, General Mills, Medtronic, UnitedHealth Group, and many others. For a metro area of this size, the concentration is remarkable. In fact, Minneapolis consistently ranks among the top metropolitan areas in America for Fortune 500 headquarters per capita. That's not something most visitors notice when they drive through the city. The office buildings don't scream for attention. The city rarely dominates national headlines. But behind the scenes, decisions affecting millions of customers and billions of dollars are being made right here. And that's where Minneapolis becomes different from many of America's trendiest cities. Cities like Austin, Miami, Nashville, and Phoenix have spent years attracting attention. People talk about them constantly. Minneapolis often doesn't. Yet when you look at income levels, educational attainment, employment, and corporate presence, it quietly competes with places that receive far more publicity. It's almost as if Minneapolis became successful without needing everyone else to notice. Another surprising part of the story is education. Minnesota consistently ranks among the most educated states in America. A highly educated workforce has become one of the region's biggest competitive advantages. Companies need engineers, managers, researchers, healthcare professionals, software developers. And Minneapolis has spent decades building the talent pipeline needed to support them. That talent attracts businesses. Businesses create jobs. Jobs attract more talent. Over time, the cycle reinforces itself. But perhaps the most surprising thing about Minneapolis is how much economic power exists behind what often feels like a relatively normal city. Drive through many neighborhoods here and you won't see the extreme wealth on display that exists in parts of New York, Los Angeles, or Miami. You won't find endless rows of celebrity mansions. You won't find an economy driven by tourism. Yet the region continues generating hundreds of billions of dollars in economic activity every year. Much of that success comes from industries that people rarely think about: medical technology, health insurance, food production, manufacturing, logistics, retail. The kind of industries that quietly keep the country running. And while they may not be glamorous, they tend to be extremely important. Of course, Minneapolis isn't perfect. Like many American cities, it faces challenges. Housing costs have risen. Crime became a major national discussion in recent years. Political debates remain intense. And then there's the weather. The winters here are legendary. Temperatures can plunge far below freezing. Snowstorms can shut down travel. And newcomers often discover that surviving a Minnesota winter requires a level of commitment they never expected. Yet despite all of those challenges, people stay. Businesses stay, investment stays, and the economy keeps moving forward. Which brings us back to the original question. Why does Minneapolis seem wealthier and more influential than many people expect? The answer isn't a single company, or a single industry, or a lucky break. It's more than a century of economic evolution. From flour mills powered by the Mississippi River to a modern economy filled with global corporations. From wheat fields to Fortune 500 boardrooms. It's one of the most remarkable transformations in American urban history. And unless someone tells you the story, you could drive through Minneapolis and never realize what was built here. That's what makes this city fascinating. Not what it looks like on the surface, but what has been happening behind the scenes for more than 100 years.